The stars had long stopped being beautiful. They used to mean wonder, exploration, a better future. Now they were just distant reminders of how far Earth had fallen, forgotten, isolated, mocked. After the collapse, humanity wasn't even listed on the galactic census. The Council called us the Silent Rock. Not worth conquering, not worth helping. They thought Earth was dead. But we weren't dead. We were angry, and we were building. In the ruins of Johannesburg, beneath the blackened bones of old skyscrapers, the last generation of human engineers lived like rats. Dirty, hungry, tired, but driven. Every piece of scrap they dug from the ground, every circuit salvaged from ancient wrecks, it all went into one thing: the Dreadnought. We didn't call it that at first, it was just the project. A whisper, a myth passed around by survivors who still believed we had something left to fight for. But the truth was, we had nothing. No fleet, no colonies, no allies. The Terran Union was just a name on forgotten documents. What we had was him. Commander Braddock. Nobody knew his first name. Hell, nobody dared ask. He wasn't tall, wasn't handsome, didn't give speeches. But he had that thing. Presence. Like he'd already seen hell and come back just to make sure no one else had to go alone. He didn't smile. He didn't joke. He just pointed and said, "Build." So we built. Underneath the ash-choked skies of the old world, under threat of starvation and raiders, the skeleton of vengeance took shape. A dreadnought like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. It wasn't graceful or sleek like the Council's ships. This thing was ugly, brutal. It looked like a prison shiv strapped to a nuclear heart. But it was ours. Fuel was a problem. Fusion cores were long gone. But Braddock had contacts, old ghosts from the failed Martian rebellion, smugglers, traitors, men who never surrendered. Bit by bit, piece by piece, we stole what we couldn't buy. And when we couldn't steal it, we made it ourselves. The propulsion system? Homemade. Shield generators. Cobbled together from crashed alien patrol ships. Weapons? You ever see a railgun designed by someone who's been starving for 5 years and hates the universe? That's the kind of madness we were working with. Still, even among the crew, doubt crept in. What's the point? Some muttered. Even if we finish it, what can one ship do? They didn't ask those questions around Braddock. Not twice. One night, during the worst blackout we had, Braddock stood in front of us while we huddled near a burning oil drum for warmth. He didn't give us a speech. He just pulled up a piece of scrap metal, pointed to a crude map of the galaxy scratched into it, and jabbed a finger at Earth. "This is where they laughed," he said. Then he dragged that same finger in a long, wide arc across half the sector, across Council territories, trade routes, and fleets. "This is where they'll burn." And that was it. No rallying cry, just cold certainty. We worked harder after that. A month before launch, the alien scouts came. Just 2 ships, routine flyby. Their sensors picked up weird readings from Earth's surface. Power surges, magnetic interference. They thought it was natural decay. Then they saw the Dreadnought. Too late. We activated its camouflage net, ancient tech fused with alien cloaking. They thought they were seeing a hill, a shadow. One scout ship got too close. The main cannon fired once. The scout ship didn't just explode, it vanished, disintegrated. The second ship ran. The Council didn't send help. They sent a message. "To whomever remains on Earth, cease your hostile activities. You are still under observation." They still didn't understand. They still thought we were animals playing with broken toys. Braddock just grunted when he read it. "They're watching?" "Good," he said. "Let them." 3 days later, the Dreadnought rose from the ground for the first time, dragging a cloud of black smoke and ash behind it, like a demon shaking off its chains. Earth wasn't defenseless anymore. The launch didn't go smoothly. It wasn't some polished, ceremony-filled lift-off like the vids from before the collapse. No crowds cheering, no media, no polished uniforms. Just a rumble so deep it cracked the ground beneath us, engines roaring like a wounded god coming back to life. The dust took hours to settle. When it finally did, there she was, hovering. The Dreadnought wasn't flying so much as daring gravity to fight back. The beast groaned and spat fire from its thrusters. Its hull was blackened steel, stitched with scars and unpainted armor plating. Raw, angry. It had no name carved into its side, no flag, no symbol, just a silent promise of violence. We gathered around her like primitives worshipping the first fire. Braddock didn't look proud, just satisfied. Like a job was half done. He climbed the loading ramp without saying a word. We followed. Inside it was worse than outside. Tight corridors, cables dangling, walls sweating with condensation from unstable power units. It wasn't built for comfort. It was built for war. Bare steel everywhere. Each step echoed like footsteps inside a coffin. I was assigned to fire control. I'd never fired a real weapon in my life. Most of us hadn't. But Braddock didn't care. "You'll learn," he'd said, and we did. Fast, because we had no choice. The first mission came 2 days after we broke atmosphere. A mining colony, Noreth IV, council-controlled. Just a pit carved into a moon, mostly automated, but they'd stationed 2 patrol ships there to maintain order. Braddock didn't say we were attacking it. He said we were liberating the tungsten. We dropped in from high orbit. The council ships hailed us. Standard procedures. They assumed we were pirates. We didn't answer. We opened fire before they finished their threat. One railgun slug tore straight through the first ship like it was made of tinfoil. The second tried to run. Braddock let it. He wanted the message to spread. We landed hard on the moon's surface. Decompression alarms screamed inside the Dreadnought as the ramp slammed open. Dust flew everywhere. I watched men who hadn't touched solid ground in years pour out, weapons up, trained, ruthless. There weren't many guards. The colony workers weren't even armed. They just stared at us, human eyes wide and stunned. One of them stepped forward. "You... from Earth?" Braddock looked at him for a second, then said something I'll never forget. "Number Earths from us." That was the day the Dreadnought got its unofficial name. The colonists whispered it among themselves. The First Fist. Not poetic, not elegant, just pure, brutal, honest. We stripped the colony bare. Fuel, tungsten, even food rations. Braddock left behind 2 crates of old Terran medkits in return. That was his version of mercy. We were halfway back to orbit when the Council finally responded. 3 destroyers warped into local space. They weren't here to talk. Braddock watched them on the tactical screen. Calm, detached. "Helm," he said. "Line us up." The Dreadnought turned slowly, like a shark circling blood. One of the Council ships tried diplomacy. They demanded surrender. Braddock tapped the communication. "This is Earth," he said. "You're trespassing." Then he cut the line. We hit them first. Not from the front, not a head-on charge like an old war vid. Braddock flanked them, used their own formation against them. Our cannons were crude, but they hit harder than anything in their fleet. We didn't have precision, but we had rage. 2 Council destroyers were wiped before they even understood what was happening. The third tried to retreat. Braddock didn't let it. He wanted the galaxy to feel us. The final shot ruptured their core reactor. The explosion lit up the sky like a dying star. That blast, visible from half a sector away, was Earth's real reintroduction to the galaxy. We returned to the colony one last time. Braddock looked out at the workers, still stunned, still unsure. "We're not done," he told them. Tell everyone. Earth remembers." We left them in silence. No anthem, no flag, just the echo of our engines and the scars in the sky. And across the stars, the whispers began. The humans are building. The humans are fighting back. The humans have a dreadnought. The council didn't wait long to respond. They never liked losing, especially not to what they still called a fallen species. The diplomatic channels lit up with demands, threats, denials, the usual nonsense. They said we had violated multiple interstellar laws, said our actions were an act of war. Braddock listened to one of their broadcasts while sharpening a combat knife with a stone. No reason, just habit. "They think laws still apply to us," he muttered. "They forgot we died already. Dead men don't care about rules." He wasn't wrong. Earth had already been buried. We were just the ghosts, come back to drag everyone else into the grave. A week later, we got our first real test. The 7th Council Fleet. Not scouts, not patrols, a war group. 5 battlecruisers, 7 corvettes, and 2 carriers. They didn't send a message. No ultimatum. They jumped into the edge of Terran space like they owned it. We were en route to raid a weapons depot on Carthus Belt when the ping hit our nav. Braddock looked at the hologram. Red dots like a virus crawling across the system. He didn't panic. Didn't even flinch. "Time to see what she can really do," he said. We didn't engage head-on. That would have been suicide, even with the Dreadnought. Instead, we led them on a chase. Braddock knew the old jump lanes like his own pulse. Some of them weren't even mapped anymore. Forgotten, unstable routes left over from the first expansion era. Routes with magnetic storms, gravity anomalies, dead beacons. We used them all. The Dreadnought was slower than their corvettes, but tougher. It could take hits, soak damage like no other ship. Braddock turned our weakness into bait. He let them think they had us cornered, again and again, only to peel off last second and drag them deeper into old Terran space, into our traps. We had mines in asteroid fields, cloaked charges in dead freighters, even hacked old satellites that could send false distress signals to lure ships off course. It was dirty warfare, guerrilla tactics. And it worked. Within 3 days, 2 corvettes were shredded by debris clouds. A battlecruiser drifted into a black zone and never came out. Another lost power mid-pursuit and was torn apart by a kinetic mine. Their commander finally got nervous. We intercepted a transmission, encrypted, but old human ciphers still worked. "They're not fighting like a fleet. They're fighting like they've got nothing left to lose." Damn right. On the 4th day they made a mistake. They split their fleet, trying to flank us. One half moved into the decay ring near Saturn, what used to be a graveyard of warships from Earth's last civil war. All that metal, all those wrecks, no visibility, no sensors. Braddock smiled for the first time in days. We lured them in with a mock distress beacon. They took the bait. We ambushed them from beneath a derelict carrier, rising like a monster from the deep. The Dreadnought's forward cannons fired 6 shots in succession. Direct hits, 3 ships gone in seconds. We followed with missile salvos, tearing through shields like they were paper. They tried to counter. Their flagship got a clean shot at us, hit portside hard. We lost 2 crew. Fire spread through Deck 4. But the ship held. And Braddock didn't blink. He ordered the railgun charged to full capacity, something we were warned never to do. The heat could tear the barrel. The recoil might rip a hole through our own hull. We did it anyway. The shot tore straight through the enemy flagship, end to end. It didn't explode. It just folded, like metal surrendering to a god's punch. No screams, no drama, just silence and debris. The rest of the fleet retreated, not in formation, not with discipline. They scattered. We didn't chase. Braddock turned to the crew. "That was the 7th Fleet," he said, his voice flat. "They won't send fleets next time. They'll send hunters, assassins, traitors. He was right again, because a week later we got our first traitor, and he came with Earth's old flag draped over his shoulders. He came aboard with a grin like he still belonged. Name was Rayner. Used to be a fleet engineer back in the early days, before the collapse. One of Braddock's own. They served together in the Mars siege, when Earth still had fleets worth naming. He walked up the Dreadnought's ramp like it was a reunion, not a confrontation. "I heard the old man was alive," he said, spreading his arms. Didn't believe it till now. Braddock stood at the top of the ramp, arms crossed. Cold eyes, no welcome. "You shouldn't be here," he said. "Oh, come on, you think I came to fight?" Rayner smiled like it was a joke. "I came to talk. You've made waves, Braddock. Hell, you've kicked the whole council nest. People are scared. Real scared." "Good. Not everyone. Some want in." That got the crew's attention. Rayner paced the deck like it was his own, touching bulkheads, admiring our crude, terrifying beast of a ship. "You've made a statement, but this is just noise. If you want to change things, really change things, you need backing, you need legitimacy." Braddock didn't speak. He watched. Rayner turned, eyes bright. "There's a faction in the council. Quiet, but growing. They don't like how things are going. They want reform, order. Maybe even Earth brought back to the table. I can make the introductions." The air on the deck changed. Tense. A few of us exchanged looks. "What's the price?" Braddock finally asked. Rayner's smile faded just a hair. "Decommission the Dreadnought. Stand down. Come in voluntarily. It'll show you're reasonable. You'll be heard." Braddock stepped forward, slow, deliberate. "You're not here to help," he said quietly. "You're here to neuter us." Rayner's smile vanished. "You've got one ship, old man. One. That's all. You think you're winning? You're making noise. But sooner or later, they'll stop playing games. They'll send real firepower, and you won't survive." Braddock didn't raise his voice. "I'm not here to survive." Then he hit Rayner, fast. Brutal. One punch to the gut, another to the throat. Rayner collapsed like a puppet with its strings cut. No one moved, no one interfered. He lay there, coughing, wheezing. "You're insane." "No," Braddock said. "I just remember what they did to us. And I'm not done making them remember, too." He left Rayner on the deck and walked away. We locked the traitor in the brig. Braddock didn't order torture, didn't need to. Just left him there, alone, listening to the hum of the ship, to the footsteps of men who'd given up everything for vengeance. Later that night, I stood watch outside the cell. Rayner looked up at me through bruised eyes. "You know he's going to get you all killed," he said. I didn't answer. "Your families, your homes, Earth's already lost. You're chasing ghosts." Still, I said nothing. "You'll die for his pride." "No," I finally said. "We'll die for what they forgot. That Earth bleeds. That Earth fights back." Rayner laughed, bitter. "You sound like a martyr." I shrugged. "Better that than a servant." He stopped talking after that. But the seed was planted. Braddock knew it. So did we. The council wouldn't send diplomats again. Not for talks, not for threats. Next time, they'd send killers. We started prepping for infiltration. Internal security doubled, sleeper scan sweeps, scramble protocols. Braddock issued new codes, cycled out anyone he didn't trust fully. Paranoia wasn't a side effect anymore. It was survival. A week later, during a low-orbit resupply at a forgotten relay station, we caught one. Not a council agent. Worse, a human, ex-Earth Navy, supposed to be one of ours, but he'd been transmitting coordinates, updating the council with our jump patterns, feeding them weaknesses. Braddock didn't hold a trial. He had the man dragged to the airlock. No speech, no last rites. He looked him in the eyes and said one thing. "You chose them." then opened the hatch. That silence, that cold death in space, it was our justice. And with every betrayal, every lie, we got harder, colder. The Dreadnought wasn't just a ship anymore. It was a statement, a war cry, a promise written in steel and blood. Earth doesn't kneel. Not anymore. The weeks that followed changed us. We weren't just rebels anymore. We were something else, harder, sharper, meaner. Every skirmish, every ambush made us deadlier. We started hitting harder targets, not just colonies or outposts, but relay stations, shipyards, even council supply lines. We didn't take prisoners. We didn't send warnings. Every target burned. It wasn't for chaos. It was math, strategy. Braddock didn't care about their morality. He cared about momentum. Make them bleed, he said once. Make them scared to speak Earth's name. And it worked. Across the sectors, the council started pulling back. Trade lanes rerouted, patrols doubled. Broadcasts spun it as containment of piracy. But we heard the fear between the lines. They didn't understand us. That was the real power. They thought we wanted territory or influence. They thought Earth was trying to reclaim a seat at their table. But we didn't want their table. We wanted to flip it and set it on fire. Still, the price of war always comes knocking. It was at an old fuel depot on Gliesa 43. Mid-raid, just a routine op. Fast, efficient. But something was off. No resistance, no alarms. We were halfway through loading when the depot went cold. Power died. Then the comms jammed, sensors flatlined. Trap! 4 stealth frigates decloaked around us. Fast surgical ships, no insignia, no transmissions, Council Black Ops. The first salvo crippled our secondary thrusters. Deck 3 caught fire. 2 of our gunners were incinerated before they knew what hit them. Braddock didn't flinch. He stood on the bridge, lit by red emergency lights, shouting orders like he was born for chaos. Charge primary, all power to forward shields. I watched him from fire control, fingers shaking as I keyed in target locks. We were outgunned, outpositioned, bleeding. But that was where we lived now. They thought we'd run. That's what prey does. Instead, Braddock pushed forward. We rammed the nearest frigate head-on. The Dreadnought wasn't fast, but it was a wall of fury. Our reinforced prow tore through the enemy hull like it was soft meat. The ship exploded on impact, ripping our own armor open. Alarms screamed. Half the bridge flickered. But Braddock was already calling the next shot. "Bring up the flak cannons. Paint the sky." We did. The second and third frigates tried to retreat, circling to our flanks. We spun hard, so hard the inertial dampeners failed on half the ship. Men were thrown into walls. Bones snapped. But we caught them both in the spread. Flak shells turned their sleek hulls into Swiss cheese. The fourth frigate didn't run. It cloaked again. Slipped right past our sensors. We were blind. Then a deep boom rocked the ship. Saboteurs. Internal breach alarms screamed. The enemy had boarded. Braddock didn't wait for a report. He left the bridge and grabbed his rifle. He led the counter-assault himself. We fought in the guts of the Dreadnought, tight corridors, smoke-filled chambers, sparks raining from overloaded panels. The Council's Black Ops were fast, quiet, precise. But we were feral. We didn't fight like soldiers. We fought like cornered wolves. I saw Braddock shoot a man in the face at point blank, then club another with the butt of his rifle. Blood smeared his coat. He didn't care. One by one, the enemy fell, no prisoners. We sealed the breach. The ship limped away from Gliesa 43, leaking fuel, trailing smoke. Barely holding together, we lost 23 crew that day. But when the smoke cleared, the Dreadnought was still flying. And the Council's assassins? Gone. All of them. Braddock walked back onto the bridge, face cut, coat torn, blood on his hands. He didn't speak for a long time. Then he looked at us, voice low. "They're done playing. Now they're hunting." He sat down, leaned forward. So, let's give them something to chase. We didn't dock after Gleaser. Couldn't risk it. Not with the damage we'd taken. Not with the Council combing every inch of space we'd touched. We floated half-dead through the Oort drift, hiding behind frozen rocks, patching hull breaches with scavenged plating and prayer. We were running on fumes, no resupply, no safe ports, no allies, just scrap metal and ghosts. But Braddock didn't let us rest. Not really. He walked the halls of the Dreadnought like a man looking for something to kill. The blood on his coat had dried, but he hadn't washed it off. He wanted us to see it, to remember. Repairs moved slow. Men were tired. Some whispered about turning back, finding a hole to crawl into until this all blew over. That's when Braddock did something none of us expected. He took us home, back to Earth, the real Earth, not orbit, not stations. We dropped through the soot-covered skies and landed in the broken ruins of what used to be New Moscow. The city was silent. Wind blew through shattered towers and rusted antennas. Wild vines crawled over old war memorials. It smelled like ash and oil and forgotten dreams. We thought he was insane. We were vulnerable, exposed. But Braddock had a plan. He always had a plan. He led a team into the old bunkers beneath the city. Pre-collapse storage vaults no one had touched in decades. Government relics, military-grade tech sealed away before everything burned. It took 2 days of digging, slicing through corroded bulkheads and bypassing ancient security protocols. I was with them when we cracked open the final vault. Inside, a reactor core, fully intact, cold fusion, Gen 7, untouched, untapped, enough power to feed the Dreadnought for years. Braddock didn't smile, but I swear his voice softened when he spoke. They thought they erased us, but we buried our future under our own bones. We moved fast, stripped the core, loaded it onto the Dreadnought under heavy cover. Every hour we stayed felt like bait dangling on a hook. And then it happened. Council orbitals pinged our signature. They found us. 3 destroyers dropped from orbit, weapons hot. We weren't ready, still refueling. Reactor was offline, cannons cold. Braddock didn't order the crew to man battle stations. He ordered an evacuation. We'd never heard that word from him before. "You want to run?" someone shouted. Braddock turned, fire in his eyes. "Number I want to survive, just long enough to finish what we started." Half the crew stayed. Volunteers. Men who knew they wouldn't leave the planet again. I stayed too. We powered up ground defenses, old missile silos buried in the tundra. Junk tech, but better than nothing. We loaded the Dreadnought's railgun manually, 6 men per slug, working by hand in a ship that wasn't meant for desperation. The Council destroyers opened fire. The first barrage hit the city hard. Dust clouds rose like mushroom blooms. Towers collapsed. The Dreadnought shook as debris hammered the hull. Still, we fired. 1 slug hit true, split a destroyer's hull, and sent it careening into the ocean beyond the ruins. The second got clipped, crippled, but not dead. The third descended, trying to land troops. Braddock went out to meet them himself. No armor, just a rifle, just rage. He took 3 with him before we pulled him back. We were losing, but we held long enough. The reactor finished loading. The Dreadnought roared back to life. Braddock stood on the ramp, his coat smoking from heat and ash, blood seeping through his side. "Get her airborne," he said. I helped drag him up the ramp. The ship lifted under fire, blasting from the surface like a wounded animal fighting to breathe. The last thing I saw from orbit was the city collapsing in fire, the ruins of New Moscow buried beneath another war. But the Dreadnought lived, and so did Braddock. Barely. The medbay was dim. Power was rationed, even with the new core humming below deck. Braddock lay on the gurney, his coat still on, soaked in his own blood. Doc tried to cut it off. He refused. "Let it bleed." he muttered. He wouldn't sleep, wouldn't rest, not even with a hole in his side and a rib that cracked every time he breathed. He kept his comm link open, listening to sector scans, crew chatter, engine diagnostics. The Dreadnought ran on his will alone. But something had changed. That mission broke us. The crew didn't say it out loud, but I saw it in their eyes. Fatigue, doubt, the kind that doesn't show in the body but rots the spirit. We had won a battle, sure, but Earth was still burning behind us, and the Council knew now, knew we wouldn't stop, and they were preparing their answer. While Braddock healed, or pretended to, we intercepted a deep-wave transmission. It wasn't military, it was public, broadcasted across Council space. A speech from one of their high judges. She called us terrorists, said we were endangering peace, said Earth's revival was a threat to galactic harmony, said primitive ideologies of vengeance must be eradicated. But the line that stuck with me was this: humanity's defiance is not bravery, it is a disease, and the cure is coming. Braddock listened to it 3 times. Then he stood up, pulled the IV out of his arm, and told the crew to assemble. He didn't give a speech. Braddock didn't do speeches. He stood there, pale as death, wrapped in a blood-stained coat, and just said, "They think we're a disease." He looked around the hangar bay at all of us, hollowed-out men with grease-stained uniforms and eyes that hadn't seen hope in years. Good. Let's infect every damn star they own. Cheers didn't follow, just nods. Cold, silent agreement. We were past the point of glory, past dreams. This was vengeance now, pure and distilled. The next target wasn't a depot or a station. It was a monument. High Judge Sorella's personal cruiser, the Adjudicator, a symbol ship. Massive, gold-plated, escorted by a fleet, broadcasting peace propaganda on a constant loop across half the quadrant. Braddock didn't care about the escort. He wanted the symbol destroyed. We began prepping for the assault. Not a direct fight. We couldn't win that way. It would be suicide. So we did what humans always do when outnumbered. We got dirty. We disguised the Dreadnought as a salvage hauler. Old trick, but it worked. Masked heat signatures, fake call signs, forged council tags. We coasted into their patrol zone like wounded rats. The escort didn't even blink. When we were close enough, just 300 clicks out, Braddock gave the order. Drop the mask. All shields down. Weapons hot. The Dreadnought bared its fangs. The first volley ripped through the lead escort. The second disabled the comms relay. The third? That one was aimed at the Adjudicator. It didn't go down easy. The cruiser fired back with pinpoint precision. We lost our portside railgun in seconds. Plasma melted half of Deck 7. Fires tore through the midship. But we didn't stop. Braddock himself limped to the gunnery deck, his side still bandaged, breath labored, but eyes burning with hatred. He lined up the shot. One final slug, charged with everything the core had to give. We dumped backup power, auxiliary life support, everything into the railgun. Braddock whispered, "For Earth," and fired. The slug punched through the Adjudicator's core reactor. The explosion didn't light the sky, it blackened it. The shockwave ruptured 2 escort ships nearby. Static deafened the comms, and when it cleared, the Adjudicator was gone. Ashes, vapor, and with it, the High Judge who called us a disease. We didn't stay to celebrate. Emergency warp drive pulled us out seconds before their fleet locked on. We escaped. Barely. Again. But this time, it wasn't just a win. It was a message. The galaxy now knew Earth wasn't asking to come back. Earth was kicking down the door. The Dreadnought didn't feel like a ship anymore. It felt like a myth. Every system groaned, hull plating scorched, airlocks patched with salvaged alien alloys, crew running on caffeine and hate. But no one complained. We'd crossed the line long ago, past comfort, past fear, past survival. We were vengeance in orbit. The destruction of the Adjudicator set the galaxy on fire. Council fleets pulled back to core sectors. Propaganda channels went dark. Trade routes collapsed. Entire colonies rioted when word spread that Earth had struck at the heart of Council authority, and won. The Council tried to spin it. Terrorist act. Isolated insurgents. But no one believed it, because we kept hitting. Smaller strikes now. Surgical. We'd appear, burn a symbol of their power to the ground, then vanish into the black. Every time they thought they had us surrounded, we reminded them who was really hunting. Then came the broadcast. From Braddock himself. It wasn't grand. No theatrics. Just his face. Scarred, exhausted, wrapped in that same damn coat. And his voice, low and cold. You forgot Earth. Buried us. Laughed at us. Now you remember. We're not coming back for peace. We're not asking for seats. We're coming for everything you took. And we won't stop until every world that ever spat on our graves is ash. It went viral across the galaxy, even in council space, even on their censored networks. Some said it was the single most watched message since the collapse. They called him a warlord, a madman. But others? They called him Commander of Earth. And people started rising. From the Martian dust domes to Europa's ice fields, old Terran colonies lit up with resistance. Council strongholds burned. Human workers turned on their alien overseers. Ships defected. Cargo routes vanished. Braddock didn't care about fame. He didn't even acknowledge it. He kept moving. He had one final target. The Conclave Starforge, the birthplace of the Council fleet. A shipyard the size of a small moon orbiting a dying sun. Untouchable, guarded by an armada. He wanted to destroy it, not disable it, not infiltrate, obliterate. The Dreadnought couldn't do it alone, but Braddock wasn't alone anymore. By then we had allies, ships with Earthborn captains, crews of deserters, rebels, survivors. They called themselves the Ash Fleet, born from ruin, forged in exile. A dozen ships, barely spaceworthy but angry, determined. We struck during solar eclipse, covered by radiation storms. The Council didn't even see us until we were inside their kill zone. What followed wasn't a battle. It was slaughter. We fought like men with nothing left. The Dreadnought rammed through the outer ring of the Starforge, guns blazing, tearing through corridors and docks. Braddock piloted from the front, hands bloody on the controls. The Ash Fleet held the perimeter, absorbing hits we couldn't block. One by one, they fell. 7 ships gone in the first 10 minutes. But they bought us time. Inside the forge, we planted the core. The stolen reactor from Earth, the last true relic of humanity's old fire. A timer. 5 minutes. Braddock stayed behind to arm it manually. No remote. No fail-safe. I begged him to let someone else do it. Anyone. He just shook his head. This started with me. We evacuated. The Dreadnought was the last out. We watched from orbit as the Conclave Starforge, the pride of the galaxy, split open from within. Fire poured into space. The shockwave painted the stars red. Braddock never made it out. The Dreadnought drifted, engine offline, systems failing. But we recovered the wreck. His body was never found. Only his coat, folded on the captain's chair. No blood, just dust. Some say he's still out there, that he survived, that he became something more. I don't know. But I do know this. The galaxy no longer forgets Earth. They see us now, and they fear what comes next. Because one ship, built from rust and rage, brought empires to their knees. Because one man showed us that the stars don't belong to the powerful. They belong to those who refuse to kneel.